مساء الخير. السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي رئيس الجمهورية القائد الأعلى
the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed presence.
نبدأ الآن فعاليات
We start now the session of Defense and National Security, and we will listen to speeches by His Excellency Minister of the Foreign Affairs and Minister of Interior, and we aspire to listen to the President's comments and readings according to his estimations. But allow me at the outset to extend my greetings and congratulations to the great armed forces of Egypt. The brave armed forces and the great people of Egypt who does not know the impossible, as in the ceremony of the October victory. Ladies and gentlemen, supreme officials and the state esteemed presence, for the national security established parameters related to a civilizational inherent perception and a continuous realization of the character of Egypt and what it means of dignity and pride, and holding on to the national decision among nations, established parameters, but in the same time are always aware and alert of all the variables and developments on the international system levels, and a pressuring international system to form this international system. Only those nations, the brave nations, will survive this conflict. So it is inconceivable that some would think we are behind an open discussion regarding the national security because what threatens the Egyptian nation cannot be live streamed. But we seek to understand the governance philosophy for the national security matters, the philosophy of the Egyptian state to formulate the developed concepts of its national security according to the values, the strategic values of Egypt. And here we talk about the state of institutions, the state of rights, development, peace, and justice. In the name of Allah, we start our session, and the estimated time is 1 hour and a half. And I should tell the Minister of Foreign Affairs to commit to the designated time. I would like to welcome His Excellency Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sameh Shukri. Major General Mahmoud Tawfiq, Minister of the Interior. And we shall start with the foreign policy factor. And please follow up with me this presentation. Where Egypt witnessed a group of challenges, including the terrorism attack and the lack of security, the foreign arena also witnessed the unprecedented challenges in the light of the Middle East disturbances which threatened the Egyptian state and the national security on all strategic levels. That's why the great political leadership was keen on fixing a stable equation to guarantee the national security and protecting the relationships with neighboring and friendly countries. And since 2014, Egypt started to strengthen its relationships with more positive moves. We find that the Arab Circle was the first priority of the Egyptian foreign affairs, which was 41 visits to Arab states to reactivate the joint Arab action with its different dimensions, achieving the interests of all Arab states and strengthen and promote its sovereignty and integrity. Based on the Egyptian constance to preserve the national security and enhance the peace and stability of the region. And we open our doors to 9 million refugees from different countries living with us, giving them the financial and tangible support. And the foreign movement of Egypt was one of the big turnouts of the Egyptian foreign policy during the past 9 years due to the active Egyptian diplomacy after 2019 to regain the leading pioneering role of Egypt after 2013. As Egypt was the head of the African Union in 2019 and carried out 30 visits to African states and was the voice of Africa in international events such as the COP27 hosted by Egypt in 2022. And the G7 in Paris and other active and effective participations, especially related to facing threats like terrorism, organized crimes, epidemics, pandemics, and environment. As we strengthened our partnerships and opening new horizons with superpowers like the USA and the EU, as well as strengthening the Asian dimension of Egypt, which estimated at 19 Asian visits since President Sisi assumed the office, as well as joining to the Asian Bank for Investment and Infrastructure. As Egypt worked to build local alliances, such as the Forum of the East Mediterranean Gas, which put Egypt on the strategic map of the region, which is a great mechanism for the intelligence cooperation among the state region facing terrorism at most. Egypt has a great role highlighting these issues on the top priorities of the foreign affairs agenda, especially the water and food security resources, with all of its implementation on the local and regional and international levels, as the political leadership reaffirmed these issues in different speeches locally and internationally. Egypt was successful through its aware and perceptive foreign policy to move forward from regaining balance to regaining impact, strengthening its relationship to brothers and friendly neighbor countries. Your Excellency, Minister of Foreign Affairs, of course, the way wasn't very easy. How did we manage to regain our integral role in the region? In the name of Allah, most merciful, most gracious, Mr. President Abdel Fattah Sisi, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to participate in this Story of a Nation session, a great nation that I represented abroad and inside for over 40 years now to serve a great people, which we all respect and appreciate. And I would like to use this opportunity to greet and salute the armed forces for the Golden Jubilee of the October victory, for all those who sacrificed for this great homeland. And if we view the foreign policy of the new republic since 2014, we should remember that the foreign policy is to serve the Egyptian citizen at first and achieve his aspiration and prosperity. It has always been a mirror for the internal affairs. And we shall remember how the state was before 2014. The state was suffering hardships related to internal affairs that were unstable and economic challenges, the decline in the regional role and international role, suffering from severe terrorist attacks, as these developments led to suspending its membership in the African Union, an institution that Egypt has an integral role in establishing. In addition to the dissatisfaction from the people towards the dignity of the state being demolished. This was important that the state shall formulate a foreign policy in line with the leader, the President Abdel Fattah Sisi, and setting these properties, the balance and diversity of relationship, and supporting international and regional stability and the centralism of the citizen role in foreign policy, and paying attention to the economic and development dimension, and a proactive policy dealing with the established challenges and policies that are in line with the modern age requirements. But these weren't only the elements taking into consideration, but it was necessary to face the challenges related to previous conditions in 2014, to have determination and will. In addition to this special property for me personally, of the determination of the President that the foreign policy of Egypt shall be based on human and ethical Egyptian manners derived from this civilizational and religious homeland, to achieve stability not only for Egypt but also for its regional and international parameter, and not conspiring, but rather working on spreading good and not destabilizing others just to achieve self-interest. This trend is actually very proud, and we are very proud of it. We are proud of this noble principle, and I pay my respects to the presidents for, as everyone can touch upon this honest bias to adopt these noble principles. To achieve this balance and diversity, it was necessary to regain the confidence of our international partners that was destabilized after 2011 and what preceded. And it gave the impression that Egypt can no longer be the dependable partner to achieve the aspiration of its people and to play an efficient role on the international arena in general and in bilateral relations in particular. And here we intensify the bilateral discussions with the Arab brother countries, the African countries, the states of the Islamic world, this middle circle, the developing world circle that Egypt is always pioneering, defending and advocating for its rights. We conducted lots of visits and joined committees and consultative mechanisms, and relying on the support of businessmen and private sector in opening cooperation horizons and establishing a linkage between Egypt and its international partners. And we relied mainly on the diplomacy of the summit, which opened new horizons and built personal relationships featured by mutual respect and confidence for what Mr. President provided of efforts and what he showed of promise and vision featured by balance, attention and care, that relationships are built on mutual interests, common interests and mutual respect, and non-intervention and paying attention to surrounding circumstances and conditions of partners. In addition to upgrading relationships to strategic partnerships for some of the impacting states, including India, Russia, China, South Korea, which all great nations and able to cooperate with us, whether on the political or economic levels, to have relationships that are impactful, contributing to upgrading the development efforts exerted since 2014, and a story of a nation through the previous sessions was the biggest example of that. As our partners are watching, and this prompted them to upgrade our relationship to strategic partnerships, as Egypt is now an impactful partner, and it is actually fruitful to be partners with Egypt. We now have partnerships with the USA, represented in hosting the strategic dialogue between the two states, economically and politically, in time with passing 100 years passing ceremony of these relationships, as well as the economic relationships with the USA are very deepened and have impact on the Egyptian economic development in this period. The European Union, whether on the European Union Commission or the member states have partnerships that we aspire to be successful with this group of nations, and hosting the Participation Council to exchange visions on bilateral issues and international issues as well, and reaching priorities, the prioritization of these partnerships, and not with setting conditions, but working that the actions serve both interests equally and evenly. There are also attentions to create a new framework for cooperation, such as the trilateral mechanism with Greece and Cyprus that has been developed, and it is integral role to achieve stability in the Eastern Mediterranean, to open horizons for cooperation with the region states in tourism and transportation fields based on historical roots connecting these three nations together, and this showed its worthiness to be a positive mechanism achieving the interests of the three states, and on the level of the Arab world, there is a Iraqi-Egyptian mechanism which is a development of the economic relation and the economic integration between the three nations in achieving integration and achieving benefits and working towards handling political and economic issues through a mutual vision, contributing to achieving stability and development efforts. The East Mediterranean Gas Forum was established, including Mediterranean states which seek to fully take advantage of its natural resources, which makes Egypt a very important platform for energy and full benefiting of its gas resources in Eastern Mediterranean, which can serve state interests and achieve further stability in a very important region in the world. This relationship that happened with Egypt and the Fishrot, four states, Austria, Slovakia, all European EU states, with special relationships with Egypt and very close visions given their geographic locations. And it was important to document this relationship, as this group of states are ready to cooperate and approaching the Egyptian vision to Europe as what happened, just like what happened with Greece and Cyprus. There was a reaction also with Munich formulation for peace with the two EU states, France and Germany, to fill the gap left behind due to the Palestinian cause and the continuation towards settling the Palestinian cause and ending the conflict on the basis of the two-state solutions and meeting the rights of the Palestinian people. Shanghai Organization and the attention towards progress in the Southeast Asia, which required attention to expand the Egyptian partners for cooperation there. And finally, the invitation that Egypt received to participate in the BRICS, which is an organization holding together major states, and opens new cooperation, economic cooperation horizons for Egypt, contributing to achieving development and upgrading the quality of life of Egyptians. The expansions and returning to work in the field of the multilateral field. Some organizations that Egypt even contributed in establishing, such as the United Nations and the League of Arab States, the G77 in China. All these organizations, Egypt always was leading impact and heavy presence, respecting Egyptian visions and ideas, and holding on to the principle of the UN Charter, the international law, and not breaking any of the international relations with any of these states, including the Human Rights Council, which was established and now receives a lot of attention from the international community, as Egypt and me personally participated in laying out the pillars of its work in a manner that guarantees enhancing human rights, and not in the framework of using it for political interests and outing states. Among other properties to achieve regional stability and international stability, I should admit that it is difficult. However, stability that we have to not be affected by the surrounding region with pressures, whether related to the terrorist threats, the illegal immigration, or the general climate that results from the instability surrounding us, which impacted Egypt effectively, and Egypt tried to settle the Libyan crisis in the framework of understanding what happened during a decade from the destruction of the state system and losing state institution and the lack of responsibility and accountability towards the people, and the vacuum it leaves for extremism and crime institutions to take over, which leads to wasting resources and capacities, leaving behind a non-appropriate climate for joint action to achieve mutual interests. Of course, Egypt is always in the forefront of advocating for the Palestinian people and settling the crisis, and advocating for the two-state solutions in the East Jerusalem as capital of the Palestinian state. This crisis that has lasted for over 70 years now, and Egypt is continuing its efforts to contain the rising and emerging crisis, and the lack of ability of the international community to reach a just settlement for the crisis, to settle the conflict once and for all, as Egypt is now communicating with both parties with confidence to reach a settlement. Unfortunately, the Sudanese crisis and its impact on us made Egypt in the forefront to seek to settle this crisis, whether through calling for a last ministerial level meeting or with the Saudi Arabia kingdom to trying to settle the crisis, and then the president held the summit of the neighboring countries, and what followed on the foreign affairs ministers summit to contain the crisis, achieving a ceasefire, paying attention to the human rights aspect, and working towards setting a roadmap for the brothers Sudanese for the future, keeping the belongings of the state and its legitimate institutions. Crises in Somalia, Syria, Yemen are related to the disturbance on the region level, and we are continuing our efforts alongside with our partners, which reinforces the Egyptian capacity to propose its vision to preserve the entity of the state, to get out of these crises related to the emerging vacuum and the access of terrorist organizations and the bad humanitarian situation in some Arab states. The peacekeeping missions and this role, which gave Egypt lots of respect internationally, as it is the 7th biggest participant in the peacekeeping missions, and I would like to extend my condolences to the armed forces and the Egyptian people for their sacrifices in the line of peacekeeping missions in Africa, as brave men sacrificed their lives to achieve stability for our brothers as well as achieving stability for ourselves. Mediation in the Ukrainian-Russian war, whether through the communication ministerial Arab group or through meetings of Arab or of African leaders, and they're seeking to achieve the UN Charter principles and reaching a peaceful solution, taking into consideration all parties to avoid the negative impact that resulted on the food security, the energy security, all things that had great impact on Egypt, as my colleagues explained in previous sessions. And here is the attention to the Egyptian participation and the President's participation in this efforts is another acknowledgement that Egypt regained the partners' confidence as it is able and have visions, which is always a positive vision towards containment and construction wisely and with balance, which is now the main feature the international community is looking for. Before 2014, there was always review on the Egyptian attention to the African Union. As the African brothers were getting rid of colonization and then supporting building state institutions and dealing with an integration system represented in the African Unity Organization, which became later the African Union. Before 2014, the Egyptian membership in the African Union Union was suspended. Egypt participated in establishing the Union, and it is one of the major funding powers for the Union's activities. But thank God, fortunately, in a few years, Egypt regained the confidence of the African states, and in 2014, Egypt regained its membership with the beginning of President Sisi assuming office, as His Excellency chaired the Union in 2015 to always advocate for African states in all seminars, international meetings, to express the aspirations of the continent with a great practical vision, that we have the self-capacity in the African continent to integrate and support the infrastructure, and providing the proper funding, proper facilitated funding for this state, not to be dependent on grants, to be self-dependent, to achieve its people's aspirations, those nations who are able with great resources, they just need to depend on each other and integrate with each other. Egypt also chaired the COMESA, which is an economic group, and it was an introduction for the free trade agreement, which the president supported for its for what it achieves of integration for Africa and inter-trade and making use of their capacities and abilities. Excuse me, Your Excellency, for the interruption, but please pay attention to the time framework. And also chaired the NIBAD and the reconstruction file that the President is leading in the light of crises. To tackle African crises and efforts to settle these the investment forum in Africa and so on and so forth. Absolutely, Mr. President, have led a lot of visits to African capitals and met African leaders, whether in their capitals or in different meetings. He attended all summits, all African summits connected to the African Union, whether annual or mid-annual summits till the corona pandemic hit, which supported the relationships between Egypt and African brothers. The third feature is the centralism of the citizen role in policy. As I have stated, the foreign policy serves the interest of the Egyptian citizen to achieve stability and build relationships with the regional and international community, opens the way for cooperation, investment, and a higher percentage of employment, seeking foreign policies that serves the citizen directly, upgrading the Egyptian citizen abroad, which is the responsibility of foreign diplomatic missions, depending on the digital system, and connecting the citizen to the mother state, to get to know what's happening in their homeland, and providing investment opportunities and productivity that the abroad citizen can support their homeland through. supporting Egyptians in distress abroad and giving them the required care, organizing elections, and we're about to witness this very important political entitlement. And I witnessed this firsthand, the linkage between missions abroad and their support for a transparent elections in a celebratory climate. There is also another factor is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is paying attention to, which is human rights and launching the human rights strategy, which has lots of dimensions. Before it is an attention center of others, it is our center of attention. And what has been proposed during the past few days, it is the attention to the human Egyptian citizen, political rights, economic, social rights, and not only serving political purposes, but highlighting the human rights and providing them. And there is no better example than the Decent Life initiative, which is a role model now everywhere on how to provide the proper care for human rights and citizen rights. Also increasing our capacities and upgrading our efforts for our citizens and grandchildren. We will keep exerting all efforts that we can. The fourth property is paying attention to the development diplomacy and attracting investment to achieve development, expanding development partnerships and joint committees and supporting the private sector. And what Egypt gained of confidence and its invite to attend the G20 and the G7 and its participation in the G77 and China, and what's coming of participation in the BRICS, all can expand the cooperation between us and these sectors, and there is always great appreciation of what Mr. President proposes in these forums, as he proposes practical ideas related to advocating for developing countries. In the light of the economic challenges that Egypt is challenging, as our partners shall be aware of our current conditions on the businessman sector and the private sector as well. There are new issues such as climate change and its implication on the human partnership on this planet. The Egyptian role hosting and chairing COP27 and what we have achieved was unimaginable. Establishing the Loss and Damage Fund was a dream of the developing countries, and it was listed on the agenda. And it is an unprecedented accomplishment to establish the fund. Is a clue that Egypt advocates its all developing countries and is able through its partnerships and ability to deal with this important issue, whether support alleviating emission and reducing emissions or adapting to climate change and meeting the advanced states' responsibility as per to all aspirations in this regard. It is a great accomplishment that we should be all proud of. Illegal immigration and the sensitivity of the states in the North Mediterranean area. Egypt is highly responsible in this regard with its heritage and civilization, always receives the brothers and provides the same services as the Egyptian citizens for refugees, as we do not establish holding centers. We do not blackmail any partners to push these large numbers of guests to cross the Mediterranean, to exempt ourselves from responsibility and let someone else bear it. But in the framework of our communications, Egypt supports this effort. And regarding terrorism and the surrounding threats, as those evil organizations want this big prize that is Egypt, this is out of reach and impossible. We have a unique experience in this regard. We have the sacrifices of the armed forces and Egyptian police and the Egyptian citizens who sacrificed their lives. We have this unique experience with a holistic security and development vision. We could eliminate this phenomena-related risks through our membership in the Security Council, to propose the Egyptian vision, established the UN strategy to fight terrorism, and now we chair alongside with the European Union the International Forum Against Terrorism to exchange our unique experience and the Egyptian sacrifices against terrorism and defining the related risks. The cybersecurity, and we're about to witness the artificial intelligence leap and the complete reliance on digital systems, that is the future, and achieving governance through the multilateral framework to be able to protect ourselves from the cybersecurity related risks and the organized crime for using digital developments. These recent requirements we developed our capacities to define the Egyptian vision regarding these issues internationally and regionally, highlighting the Egyptian identities, this established identities through 7,000 years of history, witness the eras, the Pharaonic, Coptic, Islamic, Mediterranean, all center of attention of peoples and nations, and we shall preserve it, the Arab culture as well. And the most prominent intellects and their ability to influence is the stereotype of Egypt and the necessity of defending it through this story, a story of a nation, and promoting these sessions in the media internationally and nationally to preserve the positive stereotype of all what's happening and sacrifices Egypt is making. The soft powers of Egypt and its impact on the Arab world and what exceeds is very important. The sports missions participating in different forums. This is accumulated credit, reinforcing the capacity of the state and institutions as well as communication with the media. Of course, this accumulation along the past 9 years is what made Egypt in a position, in an entirely different position since 2014. The amount of confidence, the amount of knowledge of what we are able to achieve with the determination and vision of a wise leadership, taking important decisions based on these principles that I have mentioned, that are based on a civilization, values, and commitment, and discipline. This is what is going to lead this precious homeland to all what it aspires to. The Egyptian diplomacy will keep defending its belongings and the interests of the homeland in the new republic by the leadership, under the leadership of His Excellency Mr. President. I extend for him and the Egyptian people all respect and appreciation. Thank you, Your Excellency Sameh Shukri. Of course, the successes of the Ministry of Interior has a lot to say, and we need to go further into details, but unfortunately we have this time limit. We will move to the security dimension, or more accurately, the miracle. Anyone saw Egypt on the 28th of February 2011, who they would have said, for this state to regain security, it needs 30 or 40 years. Anyone who has seen these people dreaming that Friday is back being a very normal day, that was a dream. Please watch this presentation with me before we welcome His Excellency Minister of the Interior. Since 2011 to 2019, Egypt witnessed a very hard period as the evil powers came out of their places with a very high crime rate. Since 2011 to 2014, the Egyptian economy scored losses of $450 million. We had terrorists surrounding us everywhere, a large challenge. We made a lot of sacrifices, martyrs, and injured people. To regain security again on the land of Egypt, as the police was able to arrest all terrorist elements, and because the purpose of regaining security in the Egyptian street was a priority, we relied on the digital transformation in all fields of police work, with generalizing security cams everywhere, and providing investigation transportation to receiving reports witnessing a leap in the security work and police work with the support of the most recent technologies. A lot of police departments were renewed and expanding, establishing police departments in different governorates and expanding on the civil conditions offices. And believing in human rights, a lot of rehabilitation centers were established, cancelling all the prisons and establishing new prisons for rehabilitation and upgrading human rights. We eliminated terrorism and natural life took place once more, and we proved to the entire world that Egypt is always the country of safety and security. Of course, it is a miracle. Mr. Minister of Interior, Major General Mahmoud Tawfiq, if you can explain what is the concept of comprehensive security, how was it achieved and how this miracle took place, please. In the name of Allah, most merciful, most gracious, Mr. President Abdel Fattah Sisi, President of the Republic, esteemed presence, allow me before I start reviewing the efforts of the Minister of the Interior since 2014 so far, which we were able to achieve comprehensive security through. I would like to congratulate in the name of the Ministry of the Interior to the armed forces. Allow me at the outset to go back with history to 2014. How was the security condition in 2014? There was a severe wave of violence and terrorism. There were huge numbers of prisoners who managed to flee prisons and become fugitive during 2011. Unprecedented crime rate and great losses and damages in the police body. In addition to the spread of terrorist elements in Sinai, taking advantage of the security vacuum that happened in 2011, and it is a great epic event led by the armed forces, and the armed forces should speak about it. In 2013 and 2014, Egypt witnessed 260 terrorist attacks, targeting all the belongings and facilities of the state, including, of course, the headquarters and entities of the Ministry of Interior, and the assassination attempt on the Minister of Interior at the time. In addition to a severe and escalating wave of terrorism launched by the Muslim Brotherhood group, which targeted the sabotaging any public properties at the time. The violence back then, including sabotaging and damages, included random fires at citizens in the streets. Through the confrontations during the periods that followed, the Muslim Brotherhood was the mastermind before the terrorist attacks on Egypt, and the first coordinator was different terrorist groups coordinating their operations, and they are the extremist on the regional and local levels. On the general security level, we had 23,000 prisoners, fugitives. In 2011, among criminal and terrorist elements all around Egypt, and we can imagine that this number contributed in an unprecedented crime rate. The crime rate, such as murder, kidnapping, and robbery, this rate increased 240% compared to 2011. And in felonies or misdemeanors, the crime rate increased 108% compared to 2010. These are averages, but some misdemeanors, such as auto theft, was increased by 420% compared to 2010. Stealing 250,000 cars. The police facilities were taking damage then due to the events of 2011 and what followed. And you can see that the main components of the police department were taking heavy damage, the weapons, the vehicles. And the security status in this photo represents a very dangerous security situation that threatens the entire state. And this was just enough for any state to just fight crime and terrorism and try to regain stability and security once more. But the Egyptian state did not do that. And the leadership decision at the time was to fight terrorism and crime and regaining stability and security, and at the meantime rebuild the state and develop it to take its natural place among states with the manner it deserves. The Ministry of Interior was able to move parallelly, regaining its belongings with great support from the leadership, in addition to facing crime and terrorism. And we were able to reveal and disarm terrorist organizations and revealing and detecting their resources. All the terrorist hotbeds were disarmed, as well as the explosives and the funding they had. We were able to find out the threat that Egypt was suffering from at the time and the severity of the process fighting terrorism in order to eliminate terrorism appropriately. Before I talk about crime, the sum of these efforts, we shall know that it was very accomplished and successful, but gradually along 9 years, so that we can reach now to eliminating terrorism with the success of the armed forces eliminating terrorism in North Sinai and regaining safety and security there. We were able also to face crime at the time, which extended for 9 years, and we managed to arrest 89% of the fugitives. And we are able also to look at what have been achieved along 9 years, look at the results to know the security threats that Egypt suffered from at the time, which were unprecedented rates, more than 15,000. More than 15,000 gangs and 300,000 terrorist hotbeds. We can find out the position of weapons at the time was unprecedented. In parallel, there were efforts exerted as a reflection in fighting drug positions. If we look at the statistics of the past 9 years and the volume of drugs and the money laundering cases at the time, we will find an unprecedented drug trafficking volumes. What was some of these efforts? The crime rate were reduced
مقارنة بسنة 2013 بنسبة 73%
by 73%. And also in comparison to 2010, crime percentage decreased by 9%, which is a record number. Also, we raised the percentage of detention of crimes from 75% to 95% in 2023. And the same applies to misdemeanors. They reduced in 2023 by 58%, and it reduced from 2010 by 12%. The rate of detention of these crimes in 2013 was 20%, and now it became 84%, which is another record figure. All what was done was so valuable for Egypt, and Egypt paid a lot in return for that. The Ministry of Interior provided 1,194 martyrs, 22,000 injured personnel. And I agree with you to send our greetings to the souls of the martyrs. If we stop at that and say, where do we stand now? The threat to Egypt, has it come to an end? We can say the violent terrorism has come to an end, or it was confined, but there is another threat that Egypt is facing, and it might be even more dangerous. And it is the fourth generation and the fifth generation wars that Egypt has witnessed over the previous years up till now, and is led by the Muslim Brotherhood abroad through electronic groups with a lot of financial resources, in addition to some elements that have similar interests, although they do not have the same ideology. The Ministry of Interior realizes this threat and its danger, and you can see that up till now we are witnessing a lot of rumors, fake news, lies, and the attempt to spread desperation in the hearts of Egyptians, as well as exporting long ideas to young individuals who did not witness these events. The Ministry of Interior consider this to be an objective and is working on confronting and eliminating this threat. And thank God we have enough support and awareness from citizens. The Ministry of Interior is able to abort this through proactive and preemptive operations. And we are using the power needed to face such attempts. The awareness here is the support that can confront any of these dangers. The Ministry of Interior is playing its role to raise this awareness through holding seminars, workshops, educational meetings about the attempt to dismantle countries from within, and invites to these meetings students and civil servants and employees. There is another element. When we came closer to stability, and achieving comprehensive peace and security, we always feel that there is always something still to be done. And this is our philosophy to keep up our security measures. Mr. President, in this phase, Your Excellency gave us the directives that with the unprecedented progress of the state and restoring stability and security, the Ministry of Interior should develop its measures and its resources and develop its policies. And the President said that the technological development and crime change opens the new prospects for all state institutions, one of which is the Ministry of Interior in its mandate. And His Excellency set certain elements to develop the Ministry of Interior. And His Excellency discussed with us the details of every element. And we will sum up them as follows. The use of scientific method in developing policies and developing the security and service system, upgrading the capabilities of the human element. We established a Center for Strategic and Security Studies, and it is the most modern center at the international level that works with this mandate. And it is connected to a secured network as well as an operation room to all security directorates to collect data, analyze them, and put an integrated image about all Egyptian governorates. And one of the responsibilities of this center is to forecast security issues that the state might face in the near future or the far future, as well as developing recommendations for the measures to be taken. And we use them as a guide in putting our security policies. We established a crisis management and operations center connected to all departments of the ministry. And this center analyzes the information and does remote tracking for all security and police vehicles to assess our performance. And through these technologies, we can put an assessment for every district in every governorate, and we can put for it the security suitable plans. developing the security and the service system. We established 9 new headquarters for security directorates in addition to the one in New Alamein city to assimilate the unprecedented vertical expansion in the state. We provided them all with the most modern technologies as well as crisis management and operation rooms. And we are not exaggerating when we say that these are similar to the rooms in advanced and developed countries that have a long history. We also deployed some of the headquarters of the Ministry of Interior to be in other places, and we applied the philosophy to establish security complexes so that they would save time and effort and rationalize the measures for securing these headquarters and premises. At the level of police stations, we developed and upgraded 340 police stations with a specific architecture, and we automated the work cycle, and we finished the first phase of law enforcement system that connects these police stations to the public prosecution electronically. During the development and implementing the directives, we kept the historical identity of some of the police stations that have a historical heritage, and we renovated them to look as they were before in the past, and this is an example of a police station. Also, we protected the virtual identity of some governorates like Luxor and Aswan in the police stations. Mr. Minister, excuse me. Do you need more time? We upgraded 333 police checkpoints, and they represent the first phase of the Decent Life initiative. We established a system for control and command in the Navy, and maybe in the river transport. We have the system of the hotline that can receive any complaints and reports and refer it to the competent authorities and follow them up electronically and automatically. Another very important thing, we introduced an integrated system to fight cyber crimes and established specialized police stations to receive reports in all security and police directorates. The and the cyber crime now is considered to be the crime of this era. We developed also forensics labs, and we supported the centers with all the vehicles needed. We developed the service system through establishing and developing 479 headquarters for civil status. And we introduced new systems to facilitate the service provided to the citizen. And we can get an ID card now in only 20 minutes for those who need to. And we provided 242 smart civil offices through the smart machines, and we have introduced 26 mobile vehicles that can go to any area that needs support and can reach out to elders, people with disability. It goes to their houses to support them with the services needed. And we established a new headquarters for the General Administration for Passports and developed 45 sub-offices. And we launched 2 websites for passports to issue e-visas and receive the nationality request. We developed 35 offices for work licenses and permits, and we developed the electronic system. And let me clarify one point. This was how traffic looked like since 2014 and before 2014. And according to the experts, we were about to reach traffic paralysis, and they told us that if things would go on as such, and you keep using sedatives and not making radical changes to control things, Egypt might have to send the cars with even plates on one day and those with the odd numbers on their plates on the other day, and this is very difficult. And here comes the value of the national roads network, and I'm talking here about my competency. These roads saved Egypt's traffic. And now, instead of finding solutions for smooth traffic, now we are developing ourselves further to develop the traffic system. We established new traffic premises and offices. We provided them with operation rooms and control rooms with the most modern technologies, and we established and renovated 31 licensing units to provide services for drivers, and we also standardized the virtual identity of these offices for traffic, and God willing, with this would be the virtual identity for traffic, and this is exactly what we did in all our service premises. We introduced the system of the e-label that would enable us to deal with the vehicle afar, and by doing so we will give the driver more safety and security, and it will be connected to the smart transport network that's being implemented right now to manage the national road network. We expanded the fixed and mobile radars. And this protects your lives and the lives of all drivers. We introduced mobile units for renewing driving licenses, and we introduced a secured driving license according to the international specifications and standards, and we started launching it in Suez and Taid as the first pioneer phase. We benefited from technology and the internet for the services provided to the citizens. We established the developed portal of the ministry with applications on the mobile phone as a website that gathers the interests of people regarding issues that have a security dimension, as well as studying complaints and providing different services from the ministry. And there is good interaction on part of the citizens, and people are interactive on the website, as you can see. We upgraded the human capacities, and this is considered to be one of the most important elements of developing the Ministry of Interior, because all these technologies without human resources capable of optimally using them won't be a good result. We updated the curriculum and training specialized programs in the police academy and in the institutes, and those who received the bachelor's of law can now join the police academy and receive a master's degree to work with citizens and the security challenges. We expanded the participation of women because women were proven to be successful in different fields. And we availed for those who have bachelor's degree of law to join the police academy, and they can receive a master's degree in security sciences. We established the National Center for Training on Peacekeeping in light that the Egyptian police is classified the third worldwide in police keeping and peacekeeping forces, and it provides the training, be it for the Egyptian police officers or for police officers from neighboring and friendly country, and it is accredited by the African Union Developing Human Rights, and this was the concern of the President. His Excellency has put these main elements for the system of human rights, and we are now part and parcel of our work is the policy of human rights, and it became part of our curriculum and the training workshops. We are disseminating the culture of human rights according to the directives of the President regarding the rules of dealing with people with unseen and invisible disabilities. And in fact, this caused a kind of resentment among people with disabilities because we were not able to understand the problem. We facilitated all services for elders and people with disabilities. And for the correctional and rehabilitation centers, we have a pioneer example. And I will explain to you why do we call it a pioneer example. This was how prisons in Egypt looked like in the past. We had 48 general prisons in different Egyptian governorates. Most of these prisons were old, and the age of some was more than 100 years old. And we exerted a lot of efforts to support the prisoner while spending his punishment and prevent him from being a criminal, so that he would leave the prison and become a good element in the community, and we were successful in doing so. The President at that time gave us directives to put an end to this problem and turn these centers into correctional and rehabilitation centers, so that the prisoner would leave them as a good member in the community who can contribute to developing his community. And the President had a saying here that if the person made a mistake and we are punishing him, he should not be punished twice. And His Excellency set all the elements, and he described the center that is called the Correctional and Rehabilitation Center, and he said that these should be centers that would improve ideas, behaviors, and attitudes, and rehabilitate the prisoner to be a good member of the community, whether he has a profession and a job or not. And scientific committees were held to interpret these directives into an action plan and a model to be applied. Experts and scientists from sociology, psychology, religious sciences participated with us in these discussions, as well as people working in the field of art, culture. We held a lot of workshops until we reached a model that meet all the presidential directives, and this was endorsed by the president, and we started applying these centers. We established 5 correctional and rehabilitation centers over only 2 years. And we closed and demolished 26 public prisons, and they were handed over to the state. And the price, market price for these prisons, as well as the police centers that we gave to the state, is equal to the cost of the correctional and rehabilitation centers. Thus, the state did not incur any financial burdens because of constructing these correctional centers. The correctional and rehabilitation centers, what do they have so that we can reach our final objective or final product? Suitable prisons, medical health care with high quality, social care in which we took into consideration rights of children and the rights of the mother, sports activities, the production sector, and it is the sector in which the prisoner learns something. He joins this sector to learn something, to earn money and income. Maybe he can send to his family or sustain himself with. And there are different production centers, poultry, industrial production, dairy production, technical training for those who do not have a job, so they can be technically qualified and receive a certificate to get a job, developing technical skills and turning it into a production value to earn the living. And we market these products and give him the return. Raising educational and the cultural level for those who want to continue their education, as well as practicing the religious rituals, correcting misconceptions through seminars and sessions with religious leaders to discuss different ideas to overcome different forms of extremism. And there is also a court complex that saves time and effort regarding the transportation of the prisoners while sending them for their trials to courts, and it also makes things easier for the prisoners themselves. Also, we have what we call post-care, and it's divided into 2 parts. During the penalty duration, we support the family of the prisoner and help this family enjoy its life. In addition to the phase after the release of the prisoner, we follow him up until he finds a job opportunity. This is an important experience. That's why I'm saying that it's a role model. At this time, when Egypt introduced its example, the whole world was holding conferences regarding improving the detention conditions. And when they saw this Egyptian experience, they considered it on the international level to be a pioneer example. And we received Arab and foreign delegates from other countries to know more about this Egyptian experience and share this experience when they go back to the countries regarding constructing buildings or seeing the program, how to receive the prisoner and how we are able then to help him until he leaves the prison. And one of the expected results was achieved even before our expectations. And last, the role of the community, and this was one of the directives of the president, that the Egyptian police should play its solidarity role as part of this community. We established a main system with mobile and fixed outlets in which we sell to middle and low income citizens commodities at affordable prices. And we have an important initiative. We are all one, and we are in the 24th phase under the auspices of the president. We also have another important initiative, and it is New Generation Initiative, and this is targeting the young people in the new urban communities after leaving the informal settlements. And the president said that moving them to a new place is not enough. We need to change also the character of every young man to be in line with this new place, to have a new generation that would serve Egypt in the future. And the initiative covered different activities. There were educational and awareness campaigns, and the sons of these areas were very responsive, and the initiative also was appreciated by them all, and we received requests for them to join this initiative that has specific programs with a time schedule to cover the whole year with different activities. Finally, we consider, and I remember what the president said, we are in continuous progress without any ceiling, and we are always in a race with different forms of crimes, and we need to be proactive to achieve security and stability for Egypt. And I also quote the president when he said that security and stability is the foundation for states. Thank you, Mr. Minister of Interior. Mr. President, any comment? I do not think that you need any comments after all that was said. Maybe I have a lot to say, and it will take some time, because you chose two very important files that show the face and the image of Egypt, be it the internal security policy or the foreign policy. And I want to say the same that was said by the Minister of Foreign Affairs or the Minister of Interior, because I'm always targeting laymen. Because they are the majority, and maybe the thinkers and intellects fully know this. Those people who met me in 2011, I told them that the state is going through a difficult condition, and they were very astonished. A lot of media and thinkers who were back then, I talked to them and I told them that the links and the bonds of the Egyptian state were dismantled. I meant to say, and the reality shows that the state institutions are like belts and bonds that achieve security and stability, starting with the presidency, then the constitution, the parliament, the different ministries. Each institution, when it is targeted, you are breaking something in the state. So imagine that you targeted the presidency. We are not here talking about individuals. We're talking about a state. We are not talking about a president or a regime, but we're talking about a state. When you target this institution, you remove the head that controls parts of the state, and then you target an arm of national Egyptian security, the Ministry of Interior, and not just that. And then you caused tension between the army and the Ministry of Interior, and they said that the army left the police alone. Then I'm not talking about whether the elections were fake or not. I'm saying that you have an institution and you dismantled this institution regardless of the defects it had. But this reflected deeply on the stability and the future of the state, because every institution you dismantled, you will need to restore it. Would you be able to restore it or not is something unknown, because we are not sure that you would be able to do it. For example, you dissolve the parliament. To have another parliament, you need elections. Is there stability? Are the political powers and parties ready or not? Would you be able to hold elections or not? Do you have the financing ability to fund these elections or not? So you dissolved it in just 1 minute, but restoring it is very difficult. The same applies to presidency. You dissolved it, and if you want to get it back, then you will go down a path. Would we hold the presidential elections first or the parliamentary elections first? And you get here down this path that leads to increasing the fragility of the state, especially in a country that has a big population and going through difficult economic conditions. And there are elements that understand that when this state collapses, it will take control over it. They do not understand that what falls down cannot be taken. What falls down cannot be taken. Take it, and then what is next? They were astonished to see what they found. And I'm saying this because there might be some wise people who would understand this, that when God protects a country, no one would be able to break it down. And all the elements of destruction were available. No doubt that there was no strong institution except the army, and there was also a very big plan to defame it so that it won't play its role in this phase. So all state institutions were destroyed so that it would be a stateless state. After the destruction of security directors, police stations, churches, everything that they were able to destroy, they destroyed. And I used to say that God would never enable evil ones to take control. And there was no hope for Egypt to survive. They used to ask me who would come. I used to tell them it's them. This is a scientific estimate in light of an understanding and people over 50 or 60 years of the negative image. They introduce themselves as the best of people. But the method is fake, and lying is the methodology. And they legalized lying. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm just describing. You can attack as you wish. We adopted certain policies. I was just trying to describe how Egypt was for those people who forgot or were not that interested or were young. This is what happened, and there is a difference between living it and talking about it. We can describe and write books even about it. But to live through this with all the details and to see your country, your state, and your people about to get lost with our own hands, and this was the most dangerous thing in this idea of demolishing by the hands of the Egyptians. The state institutions were already all toppled and demolished, and then we started the constitutional amendments and all things that we have been through. This is the meaning of demolishing systems and state institutions regardless of their defects. You are restructuring the Ministry of Interior, and I'm telling the Minister of Interior I support this idea. I support restructuring every place in Egypt and every institution, because development is part of human life. And if you do not acknowledge it and seek to do it, then you won't be able to do anything. If you come to say that that's enough for the state institution, or that's enough for the judiciary, or that's enough for foreign affairs, if you have this idea to stop here developing, then by doing so you are a decision maker is unable to cope with development. So it is not a demand for restructuring. It's rather the target to keep developing ourselves regardless of what happened in 2011. All officials should keep this before their eyes, to keep on developing things. You should develop today and think for tomorrow and the next year, because if you would stop, you would die. Excuse me, I will see that I'm switching between the Minister of Interior and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. When Minister Sameh, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, assumed his post, I did not know him, so we sat together to talk about the Egyptian external policy. At that time, there was a negative image about Egypt, not just because what the army did to support the Egyptian will, but this was a very negative impression. And also the state was unstable, a lot of disturbances, insecurities, terrorist attacks, not just in Sinai, but everywhere in Upper Egypt. 65 churches were set on fire. Also the electricity towers, electricity stations, and they did all what they can. So when I was talking to Sameh, I told him my politics literature is different from the literature of international politics taught in the faculty of political science. I told him I have full confidence about this literature, and this confidence is emanating from values, ethical, religious values I believe in. Even if the results would be faced with resistance, and even if the practices are not that good, I told him we do not intervene in the internal affairs of others, and we won't be part of the destruction of countries, and we will enjoy strategic patience because we are a state that goes through crises exactly like all other countries. So other crises need ideas and strategic patience. So we won't issue a statement in response to another statement. If you expel an ambassador, I would expel your ambassador. We are not going to do this. I told him we are going to rebuild the Egyptian external policy on new literature, not just leadership and these things. You are practicing here the policy of collaboration and cooperation. You say that this is the ideal world. I will tell you, you can see the results, what the results are. Did we gain the confidence of others? Those who are with us and those who are against. They all show respect and confidence in Egypt, although our abilities are not like that of the economically developed countries. We have very difficult conditions. So this is what we talked about, and we talked also about rebuilding the impression about Egypt and the state. Everything that I'm talking about here was a headline, and we turned these headlines into politics. If I would like to build an impression about the police, would I find a broken car in the street and a police personnel sitting on the pavement? Would I keep the Ministry of Interior again in Mohammed Mahmoud Street? In 2013, Mohammed Ibrahim was the Minister of Interior, and I told him, build a ministry for you in the police academy. You should not be there downtown. What happened in Egypt in 2011 is something that we need to learn lessons from, and all the measures made against the country should be avoided so that they won't happen again. Would I put the parliament and the cabinet and the constitutional court under siege? And yesterday I told you that those who used to send the criminals used to give them 20 pounds and tramadol. I was then the director of intelligence, and I used to see everything that was happening in Egypt. And on television you would see a protest with 50,000 or 70,000, and you say that this is the public opinion. How would I build this? If you would put the relation between you and myself in just being in this seat, then this is not that value. But if you preserve your country, protect it and develop it, whoever is in this seat is not that important. I'm here being honest. Listen to me.
طب اسمعوا طيب. المهم هي تكمل. المهم هي تكمل.
It's important that Egypt goes on.
اسمعوني من فضلكم. الكلام اصله مش ليكم انتوا بس. المهم هي تكمل.
It's important that Egypt would go down its path and continues.
خلوني اوصل. والله الموضوع ما زعل. طب اسمعوني طيب. طب اسمعوني طيب. طب سبحان الله.
Listen to me please.
نستأذن حضراتكم. كمل يا سيادة الرئيس.
Go on, Mr. President.
أنا لما بقول الكلام ده
Listen to my words when I say this. Why are you making prejudgments? The idea between us as people of Egypt is that Egypt would survive. Our country would survive and would move forward. This should always be your dream. So we were talking about rebuilding the impression, and we meant that the image of the state for the Egyptian citizen would make him feel small. That's why every idea that should be done by the state should make you feel proud rather than feeling small. So you would find your institutions like these ones. How would you do it without taking funds from the Minister of Finance? The idea is how to raise your doubts so that everything good you're doing would look bad. They would say this crisis you're going through because they did this and that, because this is a series of lies, because they are afraid that the country would succeed. So you need to know that over the coming 2 or 3 months you will find a lot of lies and rumors, unimaginable up till the elections. Make your impressions fixed. Your impressions should always be long term. I will back to the external policy and I would say
أنا هقول لأن طبعا طيب وأنا بس بتكلم في النقطة بتاعت اللي الوزير سامح اتكلم فيها.
I'm talking about the point mentioned by Mr. Sameh. Though you might tell me how were you satisfied with how media covered our problems with other. 100% no. I don't like using bad words or insulting others. So would you keep insulting me and I would keep silent? Yes. Would you keep conspiring against me and I defend? Yes. The more angry you feel, the more you would work.
تشتغل كل ما يجرحوك
The more they hurt you,
تشقى اكتر
the more you exert
كل ما
effort.
يطولوا سنهم عليك
The more they insult you,
تنجح اكتر.
the more you succeed.
حول الإساءة
So turn
لوقود
this
لنجاحك.
into fuel for your success.
انت هتقعد تشتمه في الإعلام.
Would you keep insulting him on TV channels?
وشوه لساني بالإساءة.
I would never do that.
فكنت أنا بس مش قادر أقول كده، أقول لهم يا جماعة ما حدش يسيء
But I was not able to tell them don't do that and keep just taking about your issues and problems without insulting anyone.
أمر غريب. فكانت القضية بتاعت بناء الانطباع.
So building the impression and rebuilding the state institutions in a different way was very important so that all evil ones would find it difficult to target them.
أنا هقول لكم حاجة
I will tell you something.
الكل شارك في البناء.
Everyone participated in the construction and the
يعني الكل
sacrifices.
شارك يعني إيه؟ يعني مؤسسات
What does
الدولة
it mean? It means that all state institutions were
سامح
part of
تخفضت
that.
المرتبات كم مرة؟
How many times did you Sameh reduce the salaries?
ثلاث مرات أو
3 or 4 times.
مرتبات
He
وزارة
reduced the
الخارجية.
salaries of the
ثلاث
Ministry
ولا
of Foreign Affairs 3 or 4 times.
حد يعرف كده؟ إذن
Did you
وزارة
know
الخارجية
that
ساهمت.
before? So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs contributed. All state institutions worked to solve the problems. The armed forces and the Ministry of Interior paid a dear price. The Ministry of Interior was restructuring itself and fighting terrorism. It was rebuilding itself and fighting crimes.
أنا والله العظيم أنا ما بدافع.
And I'm not saying this to defend anyone. I'm just telling you what people did.
اللي عمل كده مش أنا.
Those who did that are not myself or not even the Minister of Interior or the former ministers of Interior who did that were the sons of the police, the sons of the armed forces. They are the ones who paid that price. So rebuilding the impression as well as rebuilding the state institutions was an idea so that people won't feel little. You forgot that during COVID-19 and after it, in 2017, 2018, 2019, you started thinking that our economic growth has reached 6% and we are achieving a lot. So during COVID-19 and what is happening afterwards, they were able to rebuild again the state of feeling belittled. We are not little as we are supported by Allah who knows us and our path. And we are not little since you are there with us. The Egyptians. 1977 President Sadat.
يعني ف طيب انا كل اللي بعمله بعلق على الكلام بتاع
I am just commenting on what Minister Sema and Mr. Mahmoud said.
انا ما عملتش حاجه.
I did
انا
nothing.
بحكي لكم.
I'm just
انا
commenting
بحكي الحكايه
and telling you the story so that you would know what's the meaning of a state,
عشان تعرفوا يا مصريين.
so that you, the Egyptians, would know the meaning of a state.
لو عرفت لوحدي مش كفايه. طب
It
اسمعوا.
is not enough for me to know.
طب وهنا اللي بنى ربنا شوفوا انا ليا الشرف.
I'm honored. I'm greatly honored to say that it was Allah who helped me.
ف طيب هو انت يعني هو انا ما استجبتش. طب خليني اكمل بس النقطه ديت.
Let me finish this point.
مهم والله قوي. كان مهم قوي. طب يعني احنا عاملين برنامج.
نستأذنكم نستمع لسيادة الرئيس.
Excuse me, would you please listen to the President? It was so important to put an end to the negative image about the state and the image about Egypt in the mind of the world during 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014 must come to an end, and it would be replaced by another image of a strong, different state. And this was the whole idea over the past 9 years. A hand fighting and taking control and preventing with the support of Allah, and the other arm would develop this other arm with the same ability and strength would work, construct and build to make a change, to change our reality, this dark, difficult reality we were through, to change it and turn Egypt into a state that you deserve, your sons and grandsons deserve, and no one would be able to do it except you. Do you know how it will be successful? I will tell you. It would be successful by the support of God, your patience. I'm your brother. Aren't you astonished that in all countries that there were terrorism, it did not succeed? You succeeded in fighting terrorism while others did not do it. Aren't you astonished? Don't you believe that God's hands were there with us? I'm honored that God helped me. And I keep praying to Allah to keep helping us. Thank you, Mr. President. By this, we come to the end of this session of National Security and Defense.
تحية تقدير واحترام لبطل حقيقي. البطل ده هو مصر وشعبها. الحكاية مش حكاية لا حكومة ولا قيادة، ده حكاية كل مواطن في مصر. أكرمتوا مصر وشرفتوا مصر وعزيتوا مصر، انتم قتلتوا. فالشرف كل الشرف والكرامة كل الكرامة والفضل